gracious, most merciful, the one most worthy of praise. And some peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions in the Muslim Ummah, past, present, future. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Real Talk community. We appreciate you guys coming here, spending the time, and being able to be part of this beautiful program that we've built for young professionals and Muslim professionals in general within this community. Alhamdulillah, today we have an excellent and amazing topic, one that I'm really looking forward to. And we have a guest speaker, Dr. Ahmad, and Mufti Sultan will also be accompanying him and sharing some short words. The topic today is disconnect to reconnect. And the essence of this topic is we live today in a world surrounded by digital media and technology everywhere. And we've built a sort of reliance and convenience on this technology. But have we ever thought and pondered and reflected the consequences of taking in and consuming so much technology that unfortunately you can walk by people and not even get to know their names because we're too busy scrolling or trying to find out the latest information, or feeling that feeling of FOMO because everyone else is hanging out and we may be here, that we miss the beautiful moments of life as it's unfolding right before us. So, alhamdulillah, today, both of our speakers will be touching upon this topic, highlighting the importance in Islam of being present, being conscious, that human-to-human interaction that we should have with individuals, the same love, rahmah, and mercy that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ treated his companions with, so much so that each of them thought that he loved them the most. How can we display this type of behavior from the prophetic manners? So, inshallah, with that said, I will be giving it to Mufti Sultan, who will start us with the Quran recitation, and then share a couple of words, and then we will give it to Dr. Ahmad, and we will go until Maghrib Salah. And then inshallah, after Maghrib Salah, we will continue with the program, have Q&A, and between then and now, if you guys want to order any food, get any snacks, we'll be having a snacks table over there. There's also babysitting available inside for those of you guys who have little kids. Feel free to do that. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسلام وقال عمر رضي الله عنه من كثر كلامه كثر لغطه ومن كثر لغطه كثر غلطه ومن كثر غلطه قل ورعه ومن قل ورعه قل دينه أو كما قال أمير المؤمنين رضي الله عنه. So I just want to start the program off and hand it off to our glorious speaker and our esteemed beloved guest, Dr. Ahmed, by telling us that this is a very, very important subject and really just pay attention. Really pay attention because the Sahaba were tempted with trials that were very, very severe on their physical bodies, right? Their trials were grand, right? They were, beaten, they were, subhanAllah, starved. They were all the things that we see other people in the other part of the world going through. People of Gaza, for instance. They went through that. Our ibtila, everyone is being tested. Allah says, "لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ." Every human being is in a constant state of trial. Our test isn't physical. It's mental. We can't wake up unless where's that phone at? If I gave everybody an option here, like, yo, would you want the power out or would you want your phone to stop working? I can almost say, well, bro. Everybody would say, just let me have my phone so I can tell how miserable I am to people when the power does go out. Right? I'm going to just end with this. Like, we use this Instagram Reels for real talk to reel y'all in, but that was literally just it. Now we're about to tell you how long it is.
Around the world and give them victory, inshallah ta'ala. So days go by, months go by in our life, the years go by, and we get caught in this rat race. And for everybody, the gray hairs will start to come, and the wrinkles will start to come, and weakness will come, and old age will come. And then that's it, and Allah will take them. And then everybody's destination, however they chose to live their life in this world, everybody will have the same endpoint. All paths will converge at the same endpoint, and that's going to be my standing before Allah. And I will stand up before Allah with no clothes, with no money, with no possessions. And what will I present to Allah after a lifetime that He gave me in this world? What will I present to Him? Am I going to present to Him the money I had in my bank account? Am I going to present to Him my stock portfolio? Am I going to present to Him how many Facebook likes I had? Am I present to Him how many Twitter followers I had? Is that what I'm going to present to Allah after a lifetime that He gave me? Well, Allah says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On that day, when neither your wealth or your offspring will benefit you, except with the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. So what I will present to Allah on that day, when I meet Him, I'm going to present to Him my heart. And Allah is going to look in that heart. And what is He going to see in that heart? Is that heart going to be filled with images of this world and created things, or images of the impermissible when Allah looks into that heart? So, Sidi Ibn Ata'illah, he says, كيف يشرق قلب صور الأكوان منطبعة في مرآته. How can a heart be illumined when the forms of creatures are reflected in its mirror? أم كيف يرحل إلى الله وهو مكبل بشهواته. Or how can it journey to its Lord while it's shackled by its passions? أم كيف يطمع أن يدخل حضرة الله وهو لم يتطهر من جنابة غفلاته. Or how can it desire to enter the presence of God while it has not purified itself from the stain of forgetfulness? أم كيف يرجو أن يفهم دقائق الأسرار وهو لم يتب من هفواته. Or how can it understand the subtle points of mysteries while it has not yet repented from its offenses? So, what is my purpose now in this life? To worship Allah, to know Allah, and prepare my heart for my meeting with my Lord. And what's the best thing that Allah can see when He looks into that heart? What's the best thing He can see? The best thing He can see is what? Is Himself. The best thing Allah can see in your heart is a reflection of Himself. Okay? So let's put a context for our discussion. So we have a goal, we have a purpose, we have a direction. So that now the believer in this world is on a mission to prepare for that moment. That it's no surprise for the believer. And Allah tells us exactly how to prepare for that moment and that day and that standing. So the believer is not a fool, is not swept away by fads and things that most people are doing because it's popular, because it's convenient. The believer has a goal and a mission, and he has insight into the reality of things. He's not deluded by things. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, اتقوا فراسة المؤمن فإنه ينظر بنور الله. Be aware, be cautious of the insight of the believer because he looks with the nur of Allah. So that's what we want to have today. So we want to have a logical, rational, thoughtful, spiritual discussion of our digital devices and platforms. And ask, are they good for us? Do they help us with our goal? Or do they hinder us in our goal? What do you guys think? So who said that? Okay, elaborate. So we're talking about digital devices, digital platforms, social media. Do they help us in that goal or hinder us? Real talk, yeah. Yeah, Allah is khair. Okay. Okay, that's great. Okay, so it depends on how you use it. Okay, great. So you have to be purposeful. That's a great point. What else? Someone else has. So what are some thoughts? Some other sisters have their hands up. Other thoughts? Or is that the general consensus of everybody? Brothers have any thoughts? Okay, we'll talk more about this inshallah ta'ala. So that's great. So let's just set the tone here that our purpose for our discussion is not saying that we're going to all go live in caves, and this is not an anti-technology discussion. That's not it. The Muslim is a logical, rational, thoughtful. He looks at things with a rational and spiritual goggles. Is how he views everything around him. Okay? And he sees how can I utilize things in my life to prepare me for my meeting with Allah. Okay. Now, so the Sharia teaches us how to think and analyze things around us. So there's some principles that we learn. Anybody who studied learns in usul al-fiqh or qawad fiqhiyya, general principles that the Sharia teaches us how to think and analyze things around us. Some of them being, for example, that we will weigh masalih versus mafasid. So we're going to do some of these things together. That we weigh the benefit of something with the harms of something, right? To see, okay, is it worth taking or not? Everything has a benefit and a harm, a maslaha and a mafsada. Another qa'ida that the Sharia teaches us, for example, is dar al-mafasid awla min jalb al-masalih. That warding, so this is important, that warding off harm takes precedence over gaining a benefit. Warding off a harm takes precedence over gaining a benefit. Also another principle that إذا استوى ضرران فنأخذ بأخف الضررين. That if we have two harms that are inevitable, we have to choose one of them, then we choose the lesser of the two ills or the two harms. Okay. And also another important principle, قواعد فقهية, is الحكم على الغالب والنادر لا حكم له. That when we make a decision, we'll make a decision based on what's the most probable outcome, right? Not rare scenarios. Okay. All right, so we know firstly about maslaha and mafsada. I think everybody, this is a general principle, right, of benefits and harms. We weigh benefits and harms. So the Quran teaches us about this. يَسْأُلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا. See Hamza? Tell me the verse. إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَنَفْعٌ. Okay, good, yes. وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Okay, good. So we see this principle now in the Quran. They ask you about wine and gambling, and say in it is a great sin and perhaps some benefit, but its harm outweighs its benefit. So I want to take an example. I have some props. Sheikh, if I can, I brought some props with me. Can I? Okay. So I want to give an example because I want us to now take just a rational approach. So what I have here is this is a can of roach spray. Okay? This is Raid, it's roach spray. All right? Okay. So now, this has some benefits, right? What can I do with this? I can spray Hamza when I need to. No. Right, okay. So, yeah, so there's roaches, there's insects. I don't want him crawling on me, on my baby, right? So, okay, great. Okay, now I want you to think, because here's a problem, and this is relevant to our discussion, is sometimes we only look at the benefit of things, and we don't analyze the harm. And that happens with our digital devices and technologies. And when I don't do that, then my use will be very different. I want you to imagine if I only looked at this and only analyzed the benefit of this, and was oblivious to the harm. I never even asked about it or thought about it, which was what happens when many of the things were invented, right? What are some of the harms of this? Toxic, neurotoxicity can cause cancer, right? Birth defects, you name it. So I want you to imagine someone who was oblivious to the harms of this. How do you think they would use that? And only look at the benefit. What would they do with this? They say, wow, it keeps insects away? Wow, let's spray it on my cake, spray it on the baby, we don't want roaches on, right? Okay. So, I want to ask you now, see if I can find this guy here. Let's ask you, what about this? What about this? Are there benefits to this? There are benefits. But why do we only look at the benefits? Now, I'm not saying don't use the roach spray. Now, knowing the benefits and harms, doesn't it change how I use this? I keep it far away in the back of the kitchen sink, far away from food, right? It changed. I'm not saying don't use it. It changed how I use it. What about this here? What about this device? Does it have benefits? It has benefits. Does it have harms? It has harms. So we're going to talk a little bit about those today. So we have to be aware of that, because then it's going to dictate my use of this. But I can't be oblivious and say, oh, but it's good, but it lets me do this and this and this. Yes. But it has many harms. So now it's going to dictate. I'm not saying don't use it. It's going to dictate my use. All right? What are some of the benefits? You guys tell me. Some of the benefits: smartphone, social media apps, WhatsApp. I don't want to say TikTok, but maybe there's benefits to it. I don't know. Instagram. What are some benefits? Just, you can call them out. Huh? Quran. Okay, so I can connect to some Islamic learning and knowledge. What else? Communication, staying in touch with people. What else? Great. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, so it can allow me to utilize different apps, applications. I can be more efficient in my work. What else? Connect with the community. Great. Stay connected.
Having like a planner.
Yeah, great. So keeping track of things in my life. Okay, awesome. What other things that you guys can think of? GPS? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we need that. I can take photos of anything. I can take pictures of my shawarma sandwich and post it and tell people, look at my halal shawarma sandwich. So, now? Prayer times. That's a big blessing. These are all good things. So we're not denying that. Not denying that this has some uses. Not denying this has uses. But we have to look at some of the harms, because that might change how I use this. Okay? So that's really the context of our discussion here today. Okay, so I'm glad you guys mentioned some of these things. So there are some benefits, and I would say some of these are almost perceived benefits, and we'll get to why that is. And Sidi Hamza, what's our time for till Maghrib? Not you, the other half. Okay, this one. Okay. So I would say some of the benefits we mentioned, and I would argue some of them may be perceived benefits, but maybe we'll come back and conclude together on that. So I can be more productive, more efficient, save time, keep me connected with other people, with the community, increase my knowledge, Islamic knowledge, allows me to do more. It's an alternative maybe to safe, halal fun. Some people may say, I think what we said in the beginning, that I didn't think say this specifically, but it depends on how you use it. And what I'll interpret from that is it's a neutral tool, can be used for good or bad. So we're going to analyze some of these things. So I want to talk a little about some of the harms of our smartphones and our digital platforms, social media, WhatsApp, Instagram, some of these things. Number one, I think one of the most important things to remember is that these devices are not neutral tools. I'll give you an example of a neutral tool, like a hammer, okay? So a hammer was designed for a specific purpose, okay? Hammer and nail, okay? And that's it. So if you need it for that purpose, you take it out, okay? Now, can someone use it for something bad? Yes, it's possible, for sure, okay? But I will tell you that's a neutral tool. Have you ever seen someone addicted to a hammer? Have you ever seen that? No. Have you ever seen someone who's just like, where's my hammer? He puts it next to his bed. The first thing he wakes up, he hugs his hammer. He's going to the bathroom, the hammer's next to him. He's praying, the hammer's next to him. Have you ever seen that? No. Why? Because that hammer was not designed to be addictive. This is the number one important thing for us today, is this is not a neutral tool. This was designed to be addictive. And I think very clear, we'll talk about addiction. It's very clear that most people, maybe many of us, are kind of addicted. So that's the first thing I want to say, is that this was designed by design. The hammer was designed in a certain way to do a certain thing. This was designed by design. My social media apps, by design. They were not designed to keep you in connection with other people. That's not what they were designed for. They were not designed, you use it for that. They were not designed for you to connect with your community. We use it for that. They were designed to keep you addicted. And we'll talk about why that is, so that they can gather behavioral data on you and use that for other purposes. Okay, so these are addicting by design. Things that are addicting, addictions bend the fitrah. You know, someone's trying to walk a straight path. Someone's like riding a horse. Imagine if you pull the rein one way and he's just going to walk this way. That's what addiction does to your spirit. When you're trying to travel to Allah, addictions pull you and prevent you from traveling the straight path. Gambling addiction, pornography addiction, Candy Crush addiction, WhatsApp addiction. And we're going to get to why these are all the same type of addiction. They're all cocaine addiction, heroin addiction, WhatsApp addiction, smartphone addiction. They're the exact same thing physiologically in the brain. The same thing happens with the dopamine hijack in the brain that we'll talk about. So these were designed to be addictive by design. Okay. Many things, but I think we have to move on. I want to mention one quote of one of the Facebook engineers, developers of Facebook, who left, Sean Parker, one of the early developers, and he left the company, and he realized the harms that it was creating. And he said, his words, that part of our mission at Facebook was how can we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. Okay? All right. Okay. So what happens with an addiction? With an addiction, so when we do something that is pleasurable, okay? You read, make some dhikr, listen to Quran, go for a walk, spend time with your family, exercise, you do things that are halal, pleasurable and good. There's something called dopamine, this hormone in your brain that's secreted that gives you this sense of enjoyment and pleasure, okay? And satisfaction, all right? Now, what happens is something called the dopamine hijack, that sometimes there are harmful addictive behaviors. And what those do is they pull certain pathways in the brain that usually, normally, my brain will allow me to get that dopamine release by engaging in this activity, reading a book, and I feel very satisfied. And that was really, or I sit with a person, we had a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. What addictions do in the brain physiologically, it pulls you, imagine like a highway or a neuronal pathway in your brain, it pulls that path to itself. So now the brain only releases dopamine from that addictive behavior. And the brain cannot get dopamine from the other healthy behavior any longer. Think about what happens then. Dopamine is like a drug then. That addictive behavior releases huge amounts of dopamine. And then the brain needs more and more of it. And then this other thing that released, just a normal level of dopamine does nothing for me. That's why addictions cause apathy. Have you ever seen a young child, 14-year-old, who's addicted to video games, and you take him out to the park, and you want to play football with him and play catch, and what does he say? This is boring. He has no emotion. This problem of apathy is a product of the digital age. because of the dopamine hijack. And you're like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is so fun. I used to play catch with my dad. Why don't you feel anything? He has a flat face, no emotion. Because physiologically, he cannot feel emotion. It's not like a behavioral thing. He's physiologically can't secrete any dopamine with this activity any longer. It's like someone who eats like always candies, and then you try to give him an apple, and it's like, it doesn't taste like anything, right? You see what happened? Now take the opposite. If a person never ate these sweets, and you give him a date, it's like the sweetest thing. It's like a candy that grows on trees, right? Right? Then you can appreciate the sweetness of natural things. So I want you guys to understand this concept of the dopamine hijack, okay? And there's a great book on this called Dopamine World that you guys can reference as well too. So that's something that happens with addictions. That happens with any addiction. Actually, this dopamine hijack happens with any addiction. Pornography addiction, may Allah give us all afiyah. Gambling addiction, alcohol addiction, heroin addiction, drug addiction, WhatsApp addiction, TikTok addiction, smartphone addiction, YouTube addiction. The same thing happens in the brain. What are symptoms of someone who's addicted to a drug? You guys tell me. Someone who has a drug addiction. What are some of his symptoms? What is it?
They start to become isolated.
Okay, so they isolate their behavior. What else? Lack of focus. What else? Anger, irritability. If they don't have their thing they're addicted to, they're on edge. Those are all the symptoms of someone if their phone is not with them. Those are the exact same symptoms. What I'm saying is, it's physiologically, it's the same thing. I want us to realize that addictions to our digital devices and platforms are just like a heroin addiction. Okay? So we have to keep that in mind. So I would say, number one, that they're not neutral tools. They're addictive by design. Okay? The second thing is that these tools habituate me. 1 minute. These tools habituate me to multitask. Okay, this is great. Can't I be more effective? I can do everything from here. Isn't this more effective? Isn't this better? I can be anywhere and do everything. That's a good thing. That's great, right? I can coordinate the event tonight. I can check my bank account. I can finish a project. I can be listening to the phone at the same time. I can multitask. When we get resumes for different applications, what are the one thing people put on their resume? I'm a great multitasker. If I see that, no thank you. Because psychologically, psychologists know today there's no such thing as multitasking. This is a myth. The brain does not do things simultaneously. That's not how the brain works. The brain doesn't do now these 5 things simultaneously. When you think you're multitasking, what the brain is actually doing, it's bouncing from each of those things at every millisecond. So when I'm doing 4 or 5 things, when I'm on the computer listening to something, chatting about this, while I'm doing an assignment, what the brain is doing, it's not doing those simultaneously. The brain is doing this. It's bouncing from each and skipping to each one. I want you to think what that does to the brain. The brain can't just sit and look at one thing. The brain has to do this. And then we're doing that all day. So then my brain starts to have the pattern of somebody with attention deficit disorder. And that's what we all feel. All of us feel our focus has decreased. All of us. If you compare, if anyone has some gray hairs and grew up maybe at a time where there's no smartphones, you for sure you know your focus is different, your ability to sit down and read a book is different. And if you haven't, you notice that as well too. Okay? Why is that? Because we fall into this fallacy of multitasking, and what we've done is trained our brain to never be able to do one thing, and I train it to have to always bounce around and do many things at once. You know what the problem with that is? When I come to try to do one thing, and I want to do one thing, I can't. Like what? Like salah. I want to come and try to pray, and I just want to think of one thing. What have I trained my brain all day to do? I've been training it all day to keep bouncing. So I can't. So you think for 12 hours of my day, I'm going to be doing this. and I'm going to stand for 5 minutes and stop? No. The brain will keep doing it in my salah. When I want to sit and make dhikr and make dua, you think I'm going to be able to focus on Allah and have a hudur with Allah and presence with Allah? You see how these discussions are important spiritual discussions for the believer? What does Allah say in Surah Al-Mu'minun? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. The believers are successful, those who achieved now khushu' in their salah. They've achieved success. And these devices don't help me do that. This discussion, that's why today we have to pause here for a minute. This discussion we're having here, this is the smart, logical, rational Muslim who has a mission to prepare for his meeting with his Lord, and he looks at these devices with a rational spiritual eye and sees what helps him and what hurts him, and that dictates how he uses things. I think we'll pause here, Shaykh, inshallah ta'ala, for a lot of time. Jazakum khairan. Subhanakallah. Thank you. Or as you like, where you like.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Being live streamed on YouTube for now, and the handle is Mufti Sultan 23. It's kind of shady.
Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Happy with that road spray.
Oh,
I was gonna get sprayed.
No, it's empty, don't
Just
worry.
a couple of announcements really quickly. First and foremost, we are live streaming the lecture. How you can join the lecture is if you put in the YouTube handle Mufti Sultan 23, you can get access to the lecture. There's also a QR code in the back, and that links to the Real Talk group chat. So the link to the live stream is also there. We also have 3 vendors on the scene. We have a coffee vendor, a churros dessert vendor, and there's also 305 wings for food. They're right past the churro vendor. With that said, inshallah, that's everything. I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Ahmed to continue the program.
السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah. So we left off, we first talked about what I want everybody to take away. Remember this hormone called dopamine and the dopamine hijack. So that's a point I want everybody to remember, so you can explain this to other people, and how that's related to pleasure and satisfaction and addiction. I want to tell you guys, I was on a plane one time. And addictions, you need like more and more stimulus, right? Because like the drug at one point didn't work out, so you need a higher dose and a higher dose. It just sucks you in, right? Desires and hell and so forth do the same. So I was on a plane, and so these addictions affect all ages. So this is not just kids, teens, young professionals. This is aunties, uncles, grandma, grandpa. I was on a plane. There's an elderly woman sitting to my right. And so she had a movie playing on her iPhone up here. And then in the boring parts of that, she had another movie playing down here. I want you to see how the movie, so people can't read a book anymore, have to watch a movie. But one movie is not enough stimulus. I can't sit still for a movie. So during the boring part, she would look down at this, and then she had a third screen in the middle where she was doing the solitaire. I just felt so bad because that's a pure addiction. That's like a straight addiction. But we're like that in some ways, you know. So I want everybody to remember the dopamine hijack of the brain and the addictive nature of these devices. The second thing we left off on is the myth of multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking. The brain actually will jump between tasks. And to the point of these devices allow us to be more efficient or more productive, multitasking studies have shown that every time the brain has to actually switch between those tasks, the task will take longer. Because you have to factor in that time that the brain has to jump from task A to B to C. Rather than if you were to sit and do A first and then B first and then C first, to switch that time between each. So studies have shown it takes longer when you multitask, so it's not more time efficient. And as you jump, there's more chances of mistakes. And studies have found there's more errors when you multitask. So I would like to say that these devices allow us to be more efficient. I would say that's a perceived benefit, not a real benefit. And it's no surprise or coincidence if you read about the stories of the early developers, the first developers of WhatsApp, Facebook, these different social media apps, that they left it and they themselves banned it. Sean Parker, we referenced earlier, he said, I banned it from myself. I had my assistant ban it from my phone, and he bans it from his children. This is the person who one of the early inventors and developers, bans it from his own children. Most schools in the country now are going to like digitized education, and the top schools in the country, the most elite private schools in the country, don't use computers at all. They just have the children study from books. Okay, all right. Now, another thing regarding focus. When you sit and you're really focused on something, you can really just kind of get in the zone, right? And whether it's your studies or your Quran or dhikr or whatever it may be, you can really just. What happens though every time you get an interruption? So these things also, we'll talk about this. These just cause constant interruptions. When that happens, it takes when you kind of get out of that zone, and you think, okay, let me just check this message, and I come back. So it's a quick thing. I'll just check my message and come back. When you do that, studies have shown it takes 20 minutes for you to come back to focus again on the thing. It's for your brain to get warmed up back in it, you've lost 20 minutes. It's so inefficient. Multitasking is the most inefficient thing. So we want to remember that, and it's probably these devices are one of the biggest reasons why people don't have focus today. A lot of youth who complain of symptoms of ADHD, attention deficit disorder, if you just take away their devices, you'll see many of those symptoms will disappear. Or elderly people too, same thing, okay? All right, there's another effect I want to talk, we're talking like some scientific medical thing, because again, I want this to be a rational, logical discussion, right? It's not an emotional one, we're just a rational, logical discussion, is that just looking at a screen. So one of the things we said, okay, I can be looking at like Islamic material, right? Like a lecture or something, that's good. But I would say it's not a neutral device or medium. So that screen itself, so when you look at me, I look at you, there's a real person, there's light that reflects, right? There's sounds, there's emotion, there's aura, there's a ruh, okay? When you look at a screen is made up of what? A screen is made up of little dots, what are those called? Pixels. So a screen is not a real image, it's a group of dots. It's not a real image. It's a group of dots, and your brain subconsciously fills in the gaps. That's not a conscious process with your frontal lobe. That's a subconscious process. You know psychologists you've seen when they like have this like image of like this just weird ink blot, and they say, "What do you see here?" And your brain subconsciously that's what happens when you look at a pixelated image. It's just a bunch of dots, and your brain subconsciously fills in the gaps. Okay. So that process does not happen in the attentive part of your brain. That happens in the subconscious part of your brain. There's a great book on this topic that I would recommend everybody to read. It was written actually when television was becoming popular in the 70s. And Jerry Mander, I believe, wrote a groundbreaking book. It's called The 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. Okay? Read the book, and it has some great studies that I'm referencing here. So one of the things they found, when people are looking at a digitized image at a screen, their brain patterns change. Their brain waves actually change. From brain waves that are stimulated when you're in an active, focused pattern or state, to brain waves when you're like in this like hypnotic state. And they found the eyes, actually, the movement of the eyes, if you look at someone who's looking at a real object, their eyes are not still, their eyes are oscillating. Their pupils are constricting and expanding. Right? There's an active analytical process. When you look at a digitized image, because it's a subconscious process that gets activated, that stops. And the eyes of a person looking at digitized images, the pupils don't expand and contract. Nor are your eyes moving. So it changes the brain. My point is just looking at a digital image, even if it's a great lecture online, is having an effect on the brain, and specifically what's called the prefrontal cortex. So that's another medical thing I want you guys to remember, okay? That there's something, part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, okay? Addictions make that part of the brain atrophy and work less. What does the prefrontal cortex do? The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that helps you to plan, to control your emotions, to be strategic. It helps you to suppress urges. Addictions cause atrophy of the prefrontal cortex. Extensive time in front of the screens will negatively impact the prefrontal cortex. What are symptoms of kids who grow up on screens? Irritability, agitation, inability to control their emotions, lack of strategic planning. When does this prefrontal cortex fully develop? At what age do you think? You're right. Between 20 and 25. What happens if I'm giving my son, a 16-year-old, a smartphone so he can be on a screen all day? What am I doing to his brain when he's 4 or 5 hours a day at least in front of a screen? That's just his schoolwork, aside from what he does in his spare time. 8 hours a day on the screen. Actually, they say that at least, this was pre-COVID, at least 44 years of a person's life is spent in front of a screen. What does that do to the prefrontal cortex? Spiritually, how will that create a Muslim who is logical, rational, can control his emotions? You see the negative effects of these things on us on a spiritual level now? This is just a rational, logical, scientific, medical discussion. So that means I'm going to dictate my use a little bit. Okay, so that's the effect on the prefrontal cortex. The other thing is, can these be just a source of halal fun and entertainment and pastimes? Well, we mentioned, I think, a lot already that can counter that point, but also I want to say that these social media apps, I think everybody here I think is pretty well educated, are proven medically to be a source of depression, anxiety, and mental health disease. Do you know the Surgeon General? Do you know cigarettes have a warning label that must be printed on it? Do you know the Surgeon General recently said that social media should have a warning label that this causes anxiety and depression? The United States Surgeon General. So this is just like an established thing now. Social media apps, use it for whatever use it for. But in the hand of someone whose prefrontal cortex is not developed, this is going to cause a higher incidence of depression, anxiety, and mental illness, suicide ideations. Now, there's also a recent study I just saw last month that they found parents who use their smartphone in front of their children. Those children will grow up with a higher incidence of anxiety and depression and mental illness. The children seeing their parents using these devices. Okay? Studies have shown that your smartphone, just if it's next to you, even if it's off and it's next to you and you're trying to study, will decrease your focus and concentration, even if you don't touch it. Just being next to you, because your brain is just going to be pulled always to this addictive device. Okay? So these are some things that we need to be aware of. I want to mention also something that's important, that I think we know this, but I don't know if we do anything about it, but these devices are a source of great haram. Can every single person here recognize that? These are, like, I'm just trying to go and see, like, a recording of the sheikh, and why is this ad popping up with this person who's not dressed like? The internet is just a filthy place, I'm sorry to say. It's just a mix of good, bad, and ugly. Sure, there's good things on it, but you have to know this world is, Sheikh Mukhtar Maghrawi, Allah preserve him, he said that the shaitan sometimes will trick you to enter a haram market by selling you a halal product. So you come into the digital world and the internet world for an Islamic thing, and it's there ready to snatch you. This is a place that's invented by people who don't believe in Allah. Actually, they're trying to pull people away from Allah. They're trying to addict you. They're trying to addict you. You know, someone who's trying to addict you, that's like an evil, imagine people in school who are trying to addict other people to drugs. That's like an evil thing, so they can profit off that. The people who control the internet, what they're selling online is addictions. They're trying to addict you to anything. We'll talk about what they're getting in return. And that's just an evil thing. These are not people who believe in Allah and the Day of Judgment. So it's a source of great haram. So this is one of the things we'll talk about, what some of the things we have to. I think all of us, if we think about where am I spiritually in my relationship with Allah, as we began our discussion, is Allah what fills my heart? Or is my heart filled with haram images that I can't get out of my head, that I can't get out of my heart? The Prophet said that a person who commits a sin, then a black spot is placed in his heart. So now I can't feel my dhikr, I can't feel the words of Allah. We're inundated with the haram. For what? For a benefit? So say, if Ahmed, walk down this aisle, because at the end there's going to be, you can watch this video of the Sheikh, but along the way there's going to be all this haram that you're going to have to see. Should I go down that way? What did we say one of the principles are? Dar al-mafasid awla min jalb al-masalih. Preventing harm takes precedence over gaining a benefit. Then there's other ways I can gain my Islamic knowledge. I don't have to go this route. I don't have to be on YouTube for hours and then haram things. Just imagine Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, who had a photographic memory, who would just look at a page and memorize it and flip the page and memorize it. And one day his memory was weakened and he didn't know why. And he went to tell his teacher the famous story. And his teacher, he said, "Shakawtu lawaqiyan suhifdi farshadni ila tark al-ma'asi." His teacher told him, avoid the haram, Imam Shafi'i, because the knowledge is a light, and the light of Allah is not given to a asi, a person who sins. And Imam Shafi'i remembered that earlier that day, that he had seen the ankle of a woman. Okay. What are we exposed to on a regular basis? What is that doing to us spiritually? And we know this. Everybody here is looking down and shaking their head. And every time we get hit with something, it's like, but what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? You only have one life to prepare for that standing in front of Allah. Why am I wasting hours of my day on YouTube runs? For what? For what? It'll be hasra. It'll be a regret in my grave and a regret on the Day of Judgment. Let's do something about it. Okay? We'll talk about some things we can do about it. But a lot of these social media apps also are a source of some good, but a source of a lot of haram, such as gossip, and ghiba, and namima. Oh, did you hear what this person did? Oh, this actress slept with this person, or this. Just a source of ghiba and namima. This is impermissible. This is haram. Why am I engaging in this? This is the way of the non-Muslim, the way of the disbeliever. Aside from the impermissible images we mentioned, or sometimes people just quickly spread something without verifying it. So you just, I get this and I just forward it along. The Prophet said it's sufficient for a person to be a liar, to just speak, whatever he hears. Here's another point, my dear brothers and sisters. Please forgive me for this. But these devices and platforms don't promote one of the most core, essential characteristics of the believer, and that is hayat and modesty. Is it of hayat, of a believer, of a strong Muslim man who's courageous, who's strong, who's fearless, but he's balanced with hayat and modesty and shyness in front of Allah, not he's shy in front of Allah to disobey Allah. Is it of the way of the believer to post an image of himself in a muscle t-shirt on social media? Is that the way of the believer? This is a person who's trapped by his hawa and his desire. That's not the way of the believer. My dear sister, is it the way of Sayyidah Fatima to take a selfie of herself and post it online? Forgive me, my sisters. Forgive me. But remember when the Prophet ﷺ asked the sisters, asked the Sahaba, who was the best of women? And each one had different answer. And Sayyidina Ali went and asked Sayyidah Fatima, and she said, the best of women is the one that men don't see her, and she doesn't see other men. When the Prophet heard that, he gave her a hug and kissed her. Is it the way of a Muslim woman to post an image of herself online so everyone can see her face, puckering and wearing? Is that the way of the strong, pious, righteous, modest Muslim sister? It's not the way. None of us should be posting images of ourselves if there's a purpose, there's an event or something, but just for a social reason. That's not the way of the believer. We have to come back and be, right? Let's be real for Allah. It's real talk. Let's be real, okay? Forgive me. Okay, so our time is short, but these devices are made to be addicting. Why is that? This is a long discussion. So I'm just going to say these points, and maybe afterwards we can talk about them later. But I want you to know that nothing on the internet is free. So these are companies that are making trillions of dollars off of free products. Gmail, Facebook, WhatsApp. Why did Facebook buy WhatsApp, a free social media app? You don't pay anything. Facebook was desperate to buy this for $19 billion. Why is that? Why was Google desperate to buy YouTube? There's nothing free on the internet. You are the product. You are the product. The model, the business model, everyone needs to know this also about these devices and social media platforms, is the way they make money is by acquiring your personal behavioral data and selling it to third parties. And what they do with that is a whole nother discussion. So your privacy invaded. Privacy is a sacred pillar in the deen. It's impermissible to invade someone's privacy. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. It's impermissible. It's haram. And this is happening on a regular basis. Your phone, when it's on, when it's off, it's uploading data. When it's on, when it's off, thousands of data points are being uploaded to other people who are not Muslim, who don't have your spiritual interests at hand. And what do they do with that data is a larger discussion. One is they're trying to target you and stimulate your desires to addict you. That's just an evil, evil thing. It's trying to increase my shahwa and my nafs and the desires for whatever. That's the world of the internet. Okay. Secondly, there's a lot of unlawful activities that happen. Thirdly, that they influence our beliefs. So Facebook, many of you may have known, years ago had a secret experiment on its own users to see if they can influence their beliefs, their political beliefs. And then they posted that article later. They did another experiment on 900,000 users secretly to see if they can influence their emotions. And the results of that study were astounding, more than they expected, that they can not only influence their emotions, but the emotions of all their contacts as well too. That they can, what they give them, they can make them happy, they can make them sad, they can make them... So there's another thing that's happening behind the scenes. When you engage in these devices and applications, there's something greater, huge thing that's happening, and there's a social manipulation. And they use that behavioral data to try to influence your actions and behaviors. You ever remember Pokemon Go? Right, so it's this little game you play, and then you have to kind of walk to different places. And so that was a secret experiment by Google, Pokemon Go, by Google, to see if they can actually physically direct you to go certain places. So these apps have a huge backdrop and a backstory. I'll direct you to a book called Surveillance Capitalism that was written by Shoshana Zuboff, I believe. She's a Stanford or Harvard professor. Surveillance Capitalism, that talks more about that. So we don't have time to talk more. Last point I want to say is these social media apps are the means for political oppression around the world. WhatsApp is the main app that spy agencies use to spy on the Muslim world, is WhatsApp. It's the #1 app. So the state of Israel is the #1 in cyber crime, cyber warfare, and they're the number one in cyber intelligence, and they create all of the spy software for the countries around the world. And some of their main ones rely on WhatsApp and spy on people through WhatsApp. That's how they track all the Palestinians. Every single Palestinian is tracked, every single one in Gaza and West Bank. That's how the Chinese track every single Uyghur Muslim. So you have to know, when I engage in these products, I would say that you have an ethical duty to the Ummah to use these wisely or abstain from their use. Because there's a greater thing happening. This is a long discussion. Read this book, Surveillance Capitalism. Okay. So do I have a few more minutes? Okay. All right, so I want to give some time for our imam and then time for your questions. So, okay, so those were a lot of harms there, a lot of negative things. They have some benefits, okay? They have benefits, okay? But I want you to see now that I have to use this a little differently, okay? I have to use this thing a little differently, okay? So I'm just going to mention a couple of things that I think are essential tools for the believer in this time as Mufti began, that one of our greatest challenges and roadblocks as believers today is these digital devices and platforms, okay? So a few things. These things we're going to mention also are principles, I would say, for you to be successful in your worldly life. So many CEOs actually have given up on their smartphone and don't have these social media apps because they found they just suck their time. And they can be much more efficient away from these things. They found actually anybody who's successful in life, he spent at least an average of 4 hours a day practicing his trade or whatever thing he was going to work on to become. 4 hours a day. Can a person today with a smartphone and WhatsApp and TikTok and Candy Crush sit for 4 hours and can do anything for 1 hour? The most successful people have focus and remove distractions, okay? So in your worldly life, I would say this will make you the leaders in your worldly life and in your deen as well. Okay, some necessary skills that every Muslim should have in the digital age. Number one, I would say, is you have to batch your digital tasks. Batching. What is batching? Let me tell you what we do in the real life to batch. So if you want to get something from the supermarket, do you go to the supermarket every time something pops in your head? So I need ketchup now. Let me drive to Publix and drive back. I need mustard now. Let me drive to Publix and drive. I need bread. Let me drive and drive. Do you do that? It's such a waste of time. What do? You make a list and you wait. You batch that task. It's more time efficient. In business, in industry, in industrial manufacturing, they found this as well too. Batching your tasks. So you have to do this with your digital tasks. It's very inefficient to check my email whenever it dings. That's like a person who I want you to think of that, what that looks like in the real world. Think of somebody who runs out of their house to the mailbox every 5 minutes and runs back and runs back and run. This person, you would say this person is sick. But we do that digitally. I'm running to my mailbox every 5 minutes. This is an addiction. Batch your task. So give yourself times in the day when you check your email. Okay? Maybe you have to do it 3 times a day, maybe twice a day. Give yourself a time. Put in your calendar. From 11 to 12 is email time. From 45 is email time. You're in, you're efficient, and you're out. And that's going to help you focus on doing one thing at a time, and it's going to be much more efficient. Okay? Batch your digital tasks. That's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is developers, we said they're trying to pull you in to this jungle of the internet for many reasons and addict you by bundling all these digital platforms, right? We earlier said, like, I can do so much more. I have my banking app, I have my this, I have my that, I can buy on Amazon. So by putting everything together, they know they can addict you more. So to break free of that, you need to unbundle these devices. Like it has to be how it was back in the day, okay? So I'll show you just this faqir, some examples. So what I do is, so this is my phone, okay? This is my phone. So the good thing about my phone, it can beat up your phone, okay? No. So this is my phone, okay? So I can do very limited things. When I need to get on the internet, I have a laptop to do that. I've separated things, so everything has its own place and time, okay? Here is my recorder, okay? If I need to record something, here's my recorder and MP3 player. I can't get on the internet, I can't be distracted, I can't now suddenly check my Facebook. I can only do one thing with it. But when you practice doing one thing at a time, then when you're at that moment, you'll find Allah in that one thing. And when you come to pray, you do one thing at a time, you'll find Allah there. When you make dhikr at that one thing at a time, you find Allah there. When you're talking with your family or friend, doing one thing at a time, you'll find Allah there. When you're working for school or work and doing one thing at a time, you'll find Allah there. Okay? So this is my MP3 player. This is my alarm clock. So I don't use my phone, right? So what am I trying to say here? Here's my calendar. You can use your phone for a calendar. You don't have to do all this. Let's give you an example. This is my calendar. Okay? I find it much more efficient. I don't run on a battery. I don't have to run to plug it in at the airport. Okay? So now everybody's going to have their own system, right? So, but not everybody. We're not all on-call doctors. So I don't always have to be on call. Be efficient. See what works in your life. I would say number 2 is unbundle your digital devices. Number 3, you have to have periods that you engage in digital detox. So those negative effects of the brain we talked about can be reversed. But you gotta give yourself time to detox. Okay? So I have to have some times where my phone is away and off. I have to help my brain reset. Okay? So then I can use it. And if you have to use a smartphone, that's okay. But give your time where it's off. Don't have it next to you when you go to bed. It's away from you sometimes, okay? So give yourself time for digital detox. Give yourself a day that's a screen-free day. Maybe it's Jummah, maybe it's Saturday. We're with your family. This day is a screen-free day. And give yourself sometimes we go on a vacation or a trip and there's no screens. You go on a camping trip, you go somewhere with your family to the park, and there's no screens, okay? And for a child who has an addiction, if you say, my son or daughter already has a digital addiction to video games and so forth, the solution to that is to take it, that's like a severe case now, right? You have to take him like on a 2-3 week trip. No devices. He's gonna be miserable the first week and hate it. But then, just like a person who enters a rehab, the first week of detox is the toughest, and then their brainwaves reset. And then at the end of the trip, they're gonna enjoy playing catch with you and starting a fire. The brain is not a machine that just gets dented and is stuck like that for life. The brain is neuroplastic. It changes. It can change for the worse. It can also change for the better. Okay? Make it a habit not to multitask. Do one thing at a time. And create times in your day where you schedule times where you have no interruptions. Okay? Schedule your interruptions. So have time where I have from 10 to 12 is when I'm doing my schoolwork. And I'm not taking a call. It can wait. I'll get it later. I'm not answering a text message. I'm sorry. It can wait. I have times that's focused times I do work. Schedule, and then this is my time, work. Schedule your interruptions. Obviously, don't sleep with your device next to you. One of the things also that can help with addictions and help you spiritually is make sure that you're giving your body a stew. So you have to be sleeping well, at least an adult, at least 7 hours a day. And you have to be eating well, okay? I would say also definitely try to avoid platforms that are addicting by nature. And I would recommend, my personal condition is not to use some of these social media apps for just fun. If you're going to use it, have a purpose. Okay, so if we have a purpose for real talk, there's a purpose, we get in and we get out. But just to socialize, that's very harmful for you. And definitely don't post your images. My dear brothers and sisters, unless it's an event or something, but just don't post. Do you know what people are doing with those images? So those images are being fed. Facebook, all these apps and platforms are using your images to feed AI information. And also, have you guys heard of deepfake technology? Deepfakes? Deepfakes is a technology where they can take a picture of you on the internet and make it into a video saying and doing anything they want. So imagine someone can blackmail our brother, blackmail one of our sisters because they put their image online. Deepfake technology. This is a real thing that's happening, okay? So be aware of that. If you can also, on your browser, I would recommend that you put an image blocker. So if Firefox, you can download an image blocker. You can turn it on off. So when I get on the internet, you won't be hit with things that will affect you spiritually. I need to get online, right? I need to do work. But use an image blocker. Safari, you can activate an image blocker as well too. So most of the time that's activated, and sometimes you can deactivate it if need be. I would say also to always prefer spiritual gain over material one. Choose habits and activities that are in line with my spiritual path to Allah. Have taqwa with digital devices. We also have to have zuhd with our digital devices. So less is more. Zuhd, abstinence. Less is more. Okay. Always consider the effect on my heart. And an important thing is to spend time in nature. Nature is also a means to reset the brain. Okay. And also an important point. I'll close here. Is that back to our where we started. That my goal is trying to worship Allah, to know Allah, to love Allah, and fill my heart with Allah. And to reach the level where the Prophet ﷺ said that they reach the level of ihsan. And ta'bud Allah as if you see Him. You worship Allah as if you see Him. And if you cannot see Him, know that He sees you. To reach that state does not be reached with a person who is online on YouTube hours a day. And the images of the good, bad, and ugly is in their brain and in their heart. I need to have some takhalli, as the ulama of the heart say. You have to empty. You move into a new house. You have to empty out the old furniture, and then tahalli, and bring in now the good thing, right? So the ulama say that I need to connect with the natural world, because the natural world, Allah inna fi khalqi as-samawati wal ard la ayatin, right? Li ulil albab, that Allah's created the natural world as a sign to Him. That when I observe the natural world, I see that these are all creative acts of Allah. I see the af'al of Allah, the actions of Allah in the world around me. You know, if you see somebody from afar and you see his actions, you don't know him, but you see him doing these things, he's helping this person, he's serving this thing. You see these beautiful actions. Those actions tell you something about what? About that person's attributes. You say, this is a generous person, they're a chivalrous person, they're a kind person, they're a noble person. And the attributes tell you something about their entity. So the ulama of the heart say the same thing with Allah. As we connect with the real world, most of the world now is going the opposite way. Most of the world is plunging into a virtual, digital world. Virtual reality, it's going the opposite way. Further, Allah calls the dunya itself mata' al-ghurur, it's a deception. Most people are digging deeper in this fake, virtual deception world. Allah wants you to go this way, that you go from the created universe, you notice His af'al, His actions, and that takes you to notice His sifat and His attributes, and then that takes you to come to His that and His entity. So this is also spiritually what we're called to do. We'll stop here. I'll give our Mufti the microphone. Jazakumullah khairan, barakallahu feekum. You can finish. We'll give some time for questions too. Yes,
It's a lot of work I have to do. Within all of you, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to practice some of this. Obviously, like, I don't expect all of you to go back and cold turkey, just, embark on Dr. Ahmed's journey of, like, having his gadgets tomorrow, right? I understand, like, that's not what all of you are going to do, but what I do want everybody to kind of go back and do is just reflect, like, what do I do with this? Does this actually hurt me, or does it actually benefit me? Right? We all know it causes anxiety. Like, did any one of you from here, before coming to Real Talk, think that social media is, like, we're going to be here and be like, okay, whatever the extreme sheikhs tell you is fake, it's actually good, continue using it? No, every one of you knew that it was harmful before coming here already. Right? Like, the goal of coming here is just like, how do we tone it down? What motivates, like, what do I need to tell myself to motivate my own brain to tell me, like, this is not good for me? Because each and every one of you sitting here, including myself, we like to tell ourselves that I'm not of those who abuse this. And that's why we're like, all right, cool, like, why is it then causing me anxiety? I'm not that bad. I don't actually post those kind of images. I don't see those kind of images. I don't send those kind of messages. I don't receive those kind of messages. This is good for me. And then when we're depressed, we're like, why? Let me give you an example from today, my own personal social media usage, right? On my social media right now, alhamdulillah, as soon as LeBron posted what he posted about, him supporting the other side and not Palestine, I blocked him. I wrote him a long letter. I'm dramatic like that. I wrote him a long letter as to, like, why I'm mad at him, and then I unfollowed him, right? Unfollowed, because he's supporting Zionism, right? So I unfollowed him. Now, what that led my brain to doing is like, yo, if LeBron thinks this way, probably all his boys think this way. So let me just unfollow NBA, House of Highlights, everything that I just follow because of this one guy, unfollow it. So now my social media only has like I am Palestine, like all those things, right? All the things that should be giving me real stuff. But then amidst that, like today I was scrolling, right? And you know, like every time I scroll, I just be crying. But like something made me laugh. It was like one of them comedians, I don't want to say his name, he's a Muslim guy, good brother, right? So in my head, he's a Muslim comedian, he's gonna say halal joke. So like, you can't be crying all the time, bro, you need to laugh a little bit too. So then I'm thinking like, all right, let me just listen to this guy a little bit, this little comedy. And it was pretty good. Made me crack up a little bit. And then I'm like, see, I'm doing good with social media, right? And then the next video that I scroll to is Sheikh almost sitting down saying that, you know, don't let social media have you scrolling from a dead baby to a laughing baby. And then I'm like, oh, I thought I conquered social media, but it done conquered me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it is. Like, we think we're so great at controlling ourselves, and we're so mature, and we're so awesome, and social media won't get to me. I already know all your tricks, Facebook, and we don't even do Facebook anymore. The Instagram, the TikTok, like all the stuff. Like, we think we're good at it. We're not. We're not, because Shaitan's better. Shaitan has more job experience. Look at the perspective. Shaitan has more job experience in getting people to do stupid things than all of the prophets of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, put together. Right? Like imagine Nuh alayhi salam put his 950 years. The Prophet sallallahu is 23 years. Like all of the prophets put all of their time guiding people together. Shaitan has more experience leading people astray. He will literally get you to be in the category of people. May Allah save me and all of us from being in this category. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you not see some people who really think that they're doing good? Allah is telling us in the Quran, it's a very, very beautiful question he's asking us. Allah is saying, should I not tell you, oh my dear humans, who is the worst loser of all time? Like who took the biggest L from all of my creation? Allah is telling us. And then Allah answers the question himself. He says, الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. He said there's those people, the biggest losers of all time are those people who they think they're doing good, but then they're confused. Right? Like their efforts of doing this thing or that thing, exactly what Dr. Ahmed was talking about, multitasking, and brain jumping from one activity to another activity, thinking that, hey, you know what, the goodness of this one is going to cancel out that one, and then like your brain is being just completely all messed up. Allah's saying these people, they don't know what they're doing, good or bad, but then they just convince themselves that I'm the guy. For the hayat dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets them continue thinking that way. Allah says, if you really don't want me and my reminders, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala time and again, like He sent me that reminder, He sent me shit all at the opportune time, right? When I was just about to think that it's okay for me to just cry a little here, laugh a little here. No. Allah's saying, well, what are you doing here? Like, do you need that entertainment? For real. That kid in Gaza was stuck under that rubble, like, what do you tell them? For 10 hours, they just have to look at all the stuff that's on them. For 10 hours, they just have to stare at that. One thing that we can't conquer right now, what are you talking about? The art of stillness, of just being still, not doing anything. What is social media encouraging us to do? Have an opinion on everything. You know the hadith that I started with, the Prophet says? Now that was what Allah says is the worst, right? People who think they're doing good, but then they end up doing something silly. Now the Prophet said, Inna abghadakum ilayya, the most hated of you to me, and the Prophet doesn't hate people, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He loves even the people who spit on his face, like he loves people, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's rahmah. But he says, you want to know who I do hate them? It's crazy because the Sahaba are now like, Ya Rasulullah, tell us who? And he says, people who just have something to say about everything. People who just they just expound on everything that they have to say. They just want to explain themselves to the world. Hot take. Bro, who cares? I don't care what your hot take, bro. Right? Why you gotta have a hot take? What do you even know about the subject? I done read a couple articles. Ignorant people spreading ignorance and compounding the whole community into an ignorance that thinks it's woke. Right? So the whole community be thinking they're woke, but it's just everybody resharing, restoring, or whatever you call it, everybody else's each other's ignorance. Right? And we have to stop that by really actually getting woke, by literally putting it to the side for a little while. Put it to the side for a little while. Unfollow all the unhealthy stuff. Guys, for real, and this is, I say hot takes make me cringe, but I really feel that this is a good one, okay? Guys, for real, don't be following females. Sisters, don't be following brothers. You know what I'm saying? If you're not going to get off the match right away, at least don't follow each other. Why do you need to see and say, mashallah? Why do you need to see and say, mashallah? Like, that's not mashallah material, that is stuff material. Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason, no matter how nice you think your hijab is done, the eyes is not, they're going to see through all that. No matter how innocent you think that shirtless photo is, well, I had there's some sister who's going to be like, mashallah. Right? We're humans. Stop expecting to drink the poison and think that we're going to get a lecture and the lecture is going to be the shifa. Really, the poison is far more venomous than any shifa that I could offer you. We're going to complain about evil eye. Who put all that material for the evil eyes to see? You hear what I'm saying? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ista'inu ala Allah wa ajibu bil-kitman, fa inna kulla dhi ni'matin mahsud." Since every person who has anything is bound to have somebody who's going to be jealous of them. So he says, ask Allah for help and keep all your matters private. So for me, like, nah, because I saw somebody post the photo and I saw them get all the likes, the dopamine is, I'm going to do the same thing. And then you do that, and actually, like, subhanAllah, like, you can't stop doing it. Wallah, you can't stop. It just gets so bad that you're like, now every time, you just have an itch. A sign of an addicted person, you feel like your phone is buzzing. A like just came in, a follow just came in. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you're just always concerned. You know, the Prophet says that's a sign of the day of judgment when a man is going to have something on his thigh, he's going to be telling him what's happening in the house. He didn't say that in a positive light, like well, that's an advancement of technology. That's good. That's literally our phone, because where do we keep our phones? In our pocket. It's on our thigh. The Prophet predicted that 1,400 years ago, but he didn't say it positively. He said that that's a cause of people just unnecessarily being worried all the time. Right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us just a little sense to understand that our engagement with this is literally like our engagement with that rate that he pulled out. I understand the example was the Prophet exactly, he would do that. He would show you, he'd take a stick and he would draw a picture and show people examples. That this is literally how hell is hot. This is literally how life is short. This is literally how if I told y'all that there's an army ready to attack you, would you believe me? And they're like, yeah, because you never lied to us before. And then he's like, well, I'm going to tell you something more dangerous than an army. It's actually hellfire. Right? So the Prophet used that as an example. Now, really look at your phone every time that you look at it like you're looking at a ray pop. What has minimal benefit, maximum harm, the potency of the harm far outweighs any benefit that you can think that you can convince yourself. That shaitan can convince you, and then your nafs is pretty good also. Like, it's a great lawyer at convincing itself of anything harmful, right? So shaitan featuring your nafs, right? That's a dynamic tool. Like you're gonna lose. So take that, put it to the side for a little while. Take your entertainment apps, completely get rid of shows. If I could say haram, I would. Right? But I'm not one of those people who go around and say haram, haram. Shows, stop it. Unless it's a show about like, oh, like you're watching something that's actually teaching you something. Right? But like these shows in Hollywood, like, wallahi, that's the worst thing for your development in dunya or the people. It's bad. Shows gotta go. Delete all them apps that have shows. If you're gonna entertain yourself, man, don't run a podcast about the seerah of the Prophet. Listen to something. Right? We learned about how harmful images are for our eyes and just for if you're not doing it for the sake of Allah, do it for the sake of your health. You know what I'm saying? It's bad for your images. So throw on a podcast about the life of the Prophet. Your dopamine intake will actually start getting acclimated to hearing beautiful new information about things that benefit you. about the Prophet ﷺ. So now you're getting your dopamine in, it's moving you to almost tears every time, but now you're being moved in the way that you should be moving. Right? The Prophet ﷺ's life is now entering your heart instead of now some random actor who's paid to entertain you and then paid to really deviate you away from the path of Allah. For real. Right? So switch. If you can't completely detach, switch. Switch to something beneficial, and even while you switch, minimize it because even that gets boring. For real. We're humans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're weak people. We get bored very, very easily. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says one of the traits of hypocrisy is that when they stand up for prayer, they stand up with lethargy because they just can't stay still. Their mind is just like, I gotta get up out of this stillness. Like, God, like, no. This really, it really amplifies that. Salah is only going to get better if we learn to just be still with ourselves. The person who can't be alone with themselves, that's sad. You gotta start working on that. Like he said, it's fixable. Why it's fixable? Look, trust yourself a little bit. You're not that bad. You can sit with your thoughts alone for a little bit. One thing I do that really helps, go on a walk with yourself and Allah. Tell yourself, today, Ya Allah, me and you are going on a walk. Tell Allah about everything that bothers you in your day. Tell Allah, Ya Allah, that thing that, man, I want to do it. It's a struggle, Ya Allah. It's hard. And then they cry a little bit. Like, Ya Allah, like, please help me. I'm not going to do it today. Maybe I'll probably end up doing this tomorrow. Like, Ya Allah, please help. Go on and walk with Allah. Tell Allah about everything that you feel about your day. That's a beautiful way to just and put the phone away for just that one walk. I'm telling you, inshallah, that one walk can be a catalyst to change your life. So, okay, everybody, for listening, inshallah. It is Salat al-Isha time. So we are going to do a few questions. Yeah, so we're going to do a few questions before Salat al-Isha. So if anybody has any questions, then Dr. Ahmed, inshallah, will answer.
We'll jump in the questions together.
What?
We'll jump together in the questions, inshallah. We'll jump in the questions together, inshallah. Okay, sure, yeah.
I'll just tell you the question. I'll just say, and you can repeat it.
Yeah, shut off. You can see if the mic works now. Does the mic work?
It's not working.
No, okay. You want me to read them off?
Questions?
Yeah, okay. Bismillah. 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 Okay. Bismillah. Ya Allah. Okay, I'm going to ask the question. Mufti Sultan's going to answer. Okay, so I'm asking the questions and you're answering the questions.
Yeah, you got to
I have the
answer.
questions.
I got to learn from you. I'm not on that flip phone.
Put it on. Okay, all right. So the first question is, do you suggest deleting social media? Why or why not? Mufti Sultan. Go ahead, Bismillah. Jump in.
I will answer that one because he already answered that one. He said delete your whole phone. You get a new one, okay? When I get on the flip phone, I'll answer that question in that manner. Okay? I'm not on the flip phone yet, right? Before we get to flipping our phones away, I think, yes, if there's certain apps that you will feel like you're addicted to, identify yourself. Like be real with yourself. When we're in real talk, this app is bad for me. I always have an itch to post myself because I feel like these comments make me feel better about my day, whereas that's really just an illusion, right? So this app is bad for me. I'm gonna get rid of ticking time, right? Instagram, oh yeah, this one harms me more than it benefits me. Facebook these days, look, I don't even go on it unless like I'm doing a live stream for IFSF because they ain't nothing on there. So local, there's no reason for me to do Facebook because I don't even like. Right? I'm just giving you my list. Like, you know what I'm saying? If Dr. Ahmed looked at my Instagram right now and he told me, let's actually do this project right now. He looked at it and if he tells me, I'll do it after the salah. Delete your Instagram, I'll delete it right now. Because in my head, that's just a tool, right? I mean, you got followers. I got like close to like 1,000 or something. But like I heard that that's in social media terms, that's not really a lot. So I don't even benefit people. I just have like a social media because like it's just trained to have it. If he looks at it and he says it's purposeless, I'll delete it right now. Right? Is that fair? Is that fair? If now that's a step that gets you closer to Allah, what a beautiful amount of baggage that you just got rid of.
You know what I'm saying? What if your social media was the price that you paid to get a relationship and a follow back from Allah? Bruh, that's cold.
I second that. The second question is, how do we politely help someone who we see has symptoms of a social media addiction?
I'm the question.
What is the question?
How do we politely help someone who we see has symptoms of like addiction, social media addiction?
How do we politely help somebody? Like for example, some people don't know like they're really cringy, right? Like help your brother or sister if they're an oppressor or if they're the oppressed. They said we understand helping the oppressed. But how do you help the oppressor? Right? The Prophet says by stopping him from his oppression and pointing it out. Right? So sometimes people don't know that they're just addicted or they're like super cringe or like they think they're doing good. They think they're like they're good content creators, they think they're influencers, they think like they have a lot going on. Sometimes it takes a gentle reminder from a person who knows them really well. Sometimes it takes a gentle reminder from someone who knows them well that like, look, if you stop this, people might respect you a little bit more. Right? If you stop posting these type of things, like maybe like people might want to like stay around you a little bit longer. You know, people might want to hear what you actually have to say if you're not always talking. Right? And people might want to actually see you if you're not always just slaying yourself on their feet all the time, right? So gently, if someone can go to them who knows them and make them understand that this is like just inappropriate childish behavior, that might be a good approach. But a person who doesn't see anything wrong with their actions, there's no way you can actually change someone else. The right focus is to work on your own consumption, on your own chakra. That can also inspire you. Because when your own friend circle sees you functioning just okay, just right, without social media, and they see an aura of peace and tranquility around you, they're going to wonder where that tranquility comes from. And then you can just plug in, hey, delete your social medias, it'll come for you too. Okay?
Definitely. Okay. Our next question is, what are some practical tips to limiting screens, especially when leaving social media can feel like you're isolating yourself from people?
I love how this has worked out. So that's good.
What are some practical steps of increasing social media intake? Give yourself new, like actually sit down and brainstorm new activities that you find interesting. That you can replace with during the time you would normally just sit down and TikTok, right? And when you find those things, it's not going to be, if nothing, like the dopamine is nowhere near what you're going to be getting from the social media, right? Like, or from whatever app you normally get it from. But you'll be getting a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Take a little bit less from there, take a little bit more from here, and work towards converging it eventually.
Definitely. Last question. We have time for one more? Last question? Where's time? Salah time? Okay, we'll be around after the Salah then.
We're around after Salah too. After Salah, all of you are free to ask us anything. All right? Approach us.
جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. حيا على الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله